skies are clear. We go trackside for the command to start engines.
Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Please welcome the chairman and CEO of General Motors, Mary Barra, to give the command.
Drivers, start your engines.
Two participating manufacturers in the Verizon IndyCar Series, Honda and Chevrolet. Of course, this race occurring in the shadows of Chevrolet's headquarters building, very prominently visible from this racetrack. You think they want to win today? There's more than a few high-ranking GM executives here hoping they celebrate in victory lane.
This is, after all, America's capital for cars.
After some pretty heavy rain overnight and showers throughout the morning this morning, conditions are perfect. 73 degrees and sunny for the start of the second dual in Detroit race for the Verizon IndyCar Series. You can ride today with Marco Andretti, who's carrying our Mutual of Omaha on board, or James Hinchcliffe with the Lucas Oil on board. Graham Rahal has a new sponsor this week, and his United Rentals camera is on board. NTT Data rides with Tony Kanaan, of course. Helio Castroneves has a Verizon on board. Both front row starters carrying a camera. Ryan Hunter-Reay with the AutoNation on board. And Simon Pagenaud on the pole for a second straight day with a Verizon on board. Enter at racewithhonda.com for a chance to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race in the Honda two-seat IndyCar driven by Mario Andretti. Mario's got the day off today. Gilles de Ferran is subbing in. And Nigel Sylvester's getting the ride of a lifetime. Let's get some final stories from pit road before the green flag. We go to Jan.
And what a difference a day makes for Ryan Hunter-Reay. Yesterday, he didn't qualify well, started in 15th. He liked his car and he raced to 7th, but today he has a great opportunity. Starting on the outside of the front row, he knows it's a golden opportunity to show their stuff. And as mentioned, he knows full well this race takes place in the backyard of Chevrolet. He'd love to be a spoiler and bring home a victory for Honda. Doc?
Well, the bad news yesterday for four-time IndyCar champion Scott Dixon was that they had a fuel leak inside the bodywork during a pit stop that shorted out the wiring that controls the shifting mechanism, thus locking the car in first gear, ending their day. But here's the good news. Earlier in the race, on lap 19 of a stint, they had the fastest lap of the race on black tires with no push-to-pass assist used. So they know they've got a fast car today and aren't afraid to use it. Here's Rick DeBeule.
Well, Graham Rahal, for him at this race the last 2 years, it's been feast or famine. In each of the weekends, he's had a podium finish, and then he's finished on the back of the pack as a result of problems. Now, yesterday he was able to do a strategy run that was able to get him in here and finish 4th. But he's hoping that's just an appetizer, and that today he can do even better.
All right, Rick, thanks. Quick note that the broadcast available in Spanish for you by activating the SAP button on your television, presented by ESPN Deportes. We may see pit stops as soon as the 3rd lap of the race. Strategy so critical. For now, they're lined up 2 by 2, coming to the start of the second dual in Detroit race. Enjoy. That was Graham Rahal hitting pit road. Contact on the front stretch. Hinchcliffe's into the wall and more.
And Sato.
Max Chilton also got a piece of it, and we're full course yellow in the first corner.
And Dixon was almost into the wall, turning into turn 1.
What a miserable weekend for Hinch. We showed you just a little bit ago the mechanical problem that sent him into the barrier at the end of the straightaway in turn 7. Max Chilton also had a mechanical failure yesterday that sent him into the wall out of the backside of the course.
Yeah, there you go.
And Takuma Sato all torn up. Graham Rahal just leaving pit road. We caught something on his radio on the pace laps that he might not have been feeling very good. What was it, Rick, about the brake system on his car?
Well, that's exactly right. Said he had a very soft brake pedal. So soft, in fact, such a big problem, they decided to bring him in. However, what they've done is did a little bit of work and sent him back out. Now they're hoping that with this long yellow, maybe they can bring him in a few times, fix the problem, and not lose a lap.
There's his dad, Bobby, looking on from, I believe he's down by turn 3, watching this race. So what happened? First corner, first lap.
Always so dangerous because everybody's always going for the same spot. Now let's watch up here. Looks like Charlie Kimball is in the middle of the track, and he's going to start to get himself over to his left to make room to get into the corner, which is a right-hander for him, and he starts to move all the traffic over, and the guy that pays for that the most is the number 5 car of James Hinchcliffe, who ends up getting into the wall, and the rest of the guys start sliding along.
Hinchcliffe had nowhere to go.
And you can hear the impact, and as a driver, I can tell you that you hate that.
Marco Andretti got a piece of it too.
He almost got through that.
Yeah, and you know, for Sato, he should have, you know, it's a hard thing to do because watch Sato, he ends up in the middle of the track, and you're trying to get off the middle of the track, hoping that nobody's going to hit you. But if he had his foot on the brakes and stopped, then Marco would have got through there. So another day that's unlucky for Marco Andretti. You see that James took his hands off the steering wheel, so he ends up getting his hands caught in the steering wheel. Doc, you have more?
We've caught up with James Hinchcliffe. James, what happened?
I mean, Carlos was an idiot. He was pushing me wide through 12 and 13 coming to the start. We get to the start-finish line, and he just drives me straight into the wall. It was such an unnecessary BS accident to happen. And you know what? He got a nice big check in Indy. We're sending him the crash damage bill for that because that is an absolute crime. So mad. It was so unnecessary. There's plenty of room on the racetrack. It's lap 1. It was a joke. We will definitely be talking after this.
What do you do now with the car? Can you get it repaired and get back out?
We're going to try. I mean, you know, as long as he's still out there, there's probably going to be some more accidents, so we'll try and go and get the car back out there and pick up whatever points we can. But I'm just gutted. You know, this weekend started with a ton of potential. The car was fast. The aero guys had, you know, a really quick car off the truck. And, you know, yesterday we had a mechanical failure, takes us out of a top 5, and today we have morons just driving people off the road.
Has there been bad blood between you and Munoz in the past? Anything in the past that would have brought this up?
No, we were joking around before the start of the race. You know, it's he's not a bad kid. It's just it was so stupid. I mean, even like I said, coming through 12 and 13, coming to the green, he was giving me absolutely no room. I don't know if there was someone on the inside of him.
And the incident is under review by the 3-steward panel that looks at such things.
You know, and I think what James doesn't understand right now, and he did mention that he thought maybe somebody might be on the inside of Carlos, and that's exactly what he'll find when he watches the replay.
You will see in our ABC side-by-side coverage that some will drift onto pit road under this yellow flag. The first of the strategy moves that we'll see throughout the race. First turn carnage here in the second of the duel in Detroit races. Has us under caution before we got a full lap of green. In fact, before we got a full corner of green. And about 4 cars damaged in that knockaround. Hinchcliffe, Sato, Max Chilton, and Amore.
You know, watch here, guys. The 83 of Charlie Kimball is driving along, and he's going towards turn 1, but what he doesn't know is that obviously the 26 of Carlos Munoz is right behind him. So as we roll this, you'll see Charlie Kimball start to go towards the inside a little bit, thinks he's going to get around Sato a little bit. And at that time, the 26 car of Carlos Munoz is starting to fill in the gap. And as soon as the gap is filled, the 83 Charlie Kimball decides I need to make a nice swing into turn 1, pushes over the 26 of Carlos Munoz, which then takes out James Hinchcliffe. Now, when James goes back and watches this, he will then find out that it really wasn't Carlos's fault. It was a chain reaction. But all he knows, Eddie, is the disappointment that he had from Carlos from what went on before the green flag. And we all play the mind games.
It's very difficult when you're going into a corner like that and you don't know if there's 3 abreast. All Charlie tried to do was get a better run at the corner. Had he kept his line, all that would have been avoided. Or the biggest problem they would have had would have been rubbing wheels. But once Hinchcliffe was into the wall, it was done.
So you don't see Munoz jumping in there in between them when Kimball faded a little bit to the inside as being an issue at all.
No, you're going for a space in the racetrack, so he did the right thing, and Kimball realized he wasn't going to make ground on the car in front and wanted to go towards the left, as we would always do it. He just set up for a right-hander, and lo and behold, that gave the chain reaction. So,
but those are immediate decisions that you have to make, so obviously he didn't have all the information available, and he made the wrong one.
Graham Rahal was also back on and off pit road as they continue the repairs on his car, so we're getting ready to go back to green here. Single file this time.
It would be nice to know if they found the issue with his brakes.
We got our best guy on it, and I'll bet he can tell us. How about it, Rick?
Well, what they did was they brought him in and bled the brakes, and it was a major event to get that done. They're working under pressure, trying to get it done, bleed the brakes before it gets out in that next lap. Fortunately, they were able to get him out and get him back on the lead lap, so he has not lost a lap here in this race.
Coming to the green. That was yesterday's winner, Bourdais, who made the move going off into turn 1. Now they come to turn 3.
Montoya was sticking his nose in there.
I'm going to say that this is a fun track. You and I mentioned that the other day when we were chatting with each other. And on the inside,
that is Munoz.
Making a nice clean move. Very difficult. Remember, the tires are just getting up to pressure and temperature. It's a fun track to drive because it's very challenging, but the pounding that we take inside the car, sitting in the seat and the steering wheel, it almost takes the fun away from it sometimes and the enjoyment.
And the thing about this place is that it's bumpy everywhere. There isn't one place that's smooth, so I think that you just have to get used to it. But trying to put over 550 horsepower down on a track like this is very difficult. It just wears you out.
Hawksworth dives to pit road. Again at the beginning of this one, Doc. Sorry, Jan.
That's all right. And the situation for Mikhail, you talked about him missing turn number 7. They found there was a brake-related issue that was technical. So it wasn't just that he was trying to find the sweet spot. There was actually something physically wrong with the braking system. So now that really raises a driver's confidence level. In fact, he came on the radio and said, "I can't stop for turn 7. They said, "Don't worry, we'll fix the brakes. You'll be..."
Funding to get an also-ran attempt at Formula One. Did very well in his rookie year, then got badly injured at the end of that season 2 years ago in a crash out at California Speedway in Fontana. Had to not race in the United States last year because of some of the politics between his country and ours. His sponsorship was tied up in some of that. He's back this year. He's fast, he's aggressive. Sometimes a little too aggressive in the opinions of some of his competitors, but he said he's got a real bond with the Schmidt-Peterson team now because while he was in the hospital all alone in the United States, they never left him alone.
I think he's great to watch. I love watching Aloshin on the track.
Simon Pagenaud has been great on the track, trying to get a 4th win this season. We'll see if he can do it today in Detroit. We're back to Motor City after this from your ABC station. The Motor City, where the Verizon IndyCar Series races in the duel in Detroit. Yesterday's race was somewhat calm where contact incidents were concerned. Sometimes when you get these races, when day 1 is calm, day 2 gets to be a little frantic and action-packed. We'll see if that's how this turns out. Simon Pagenaud is the race leader. You ride on board with him with a reminder to download IndyCar Mobile to access exclusive live in-car cameras, hear driver and pit crew chatter and more, only on Verizon. Sato's in.
It's time to play the strategy game. They have brought Sato in. They're going to go ahead and change off the alternate, the red tires, onto those black compound tires. The goal is not to make any changes. Now we'll see where the strategy starts to play out. We saw yesterday early stops change the course of the race.
By way of reminder, there are 2 different tire compounds, actually 3 in Verizon IndyCar Series. One's a wet tire, but the 2 that you must run, that red sidewall tire, softer, faster initially, drops off more quickly. The standard tire, the black sidewall, is not as quick off the get-go, but lasts longer. Which one do you have to run each one for at least 2 laps during a race? Which one for which race has been a great subject of debate here this weekend.
But here, as in all circuits, a car that is working well will abuse its tires less. And if you can run the red tires, you have an advantage. But when a car is not good over the bumps and you're spinning your tires, you have to fall back on the blacks. And as we can see with Pagenaud, he's doing exactly what he did yesterday.
Because great sections of this racetrack surface are made of concrete, a lot of folks thought that the red tires, the softer tires, would scrub off more quickly, and you'd want to get off of those as quickly as possible. But yesterday, Pagenaud made those last for a long, long time. And that's got some people rethinking things, perhaps, for today's race. Jan?
Yes, you can see the strategy here was more for a nose than it was for tires. Alexander Rossi, another one of those drivers who received a penalty in qualifying. He actually qualified 6th. But he overdrove a yellow. If there's a yellow flag, you have to slow down. That's 17.5 seconds. Not bad for changing the nose, but that'll obviously hurt you. They'll look at the strategy now. He was penalized for overdriving. If you do not slow down 15% through a yellow section, they take away your fastest lap. So now he has to rethink and hoping for a yellow.
That was during qualifying this morning, that penalty for Rossi. Now, Team Penske has had an interesting weekend for sure. They ran 1, 2, 3, 4 for a while yesterday, but Will Power 12 and Juan Montoya 2 had that moment we showed you. Your word, Scott, the confrontational pass?
Confrontation, you know, and there seems to be a little bit of tension right now in Team Penske as we see yesterday's winner, number 11, coming into the pit stop. Sebastian Bourdais, Jan.
And interestingly, this is the exact same timing as his second stop yesterday. He didn't like his first one on lap 3, but he loved this one on lap 13. A little bit slow possibly on the outside front. That slows him to 9.1. Rick?
Graham Rahal came in for another stop, taking off those red tires. The good news is no complaints about the brakes. They didn't try to work on it and just sent him back out.
All right, Rick.
About 50 miles an hour going through pit lane seems like such a long time as a driver. So anxious to get out and get going.
And the exit is not easy on this track yesterday.
We were just talking about that before we went to pit stops. I mean, there's a lot of tension in the team right now, I believe. And these two guys were at it yesterday. They're at it again today. And Eddie, you know, is a hometown race for Roger.
Yeah, remember me?
Now, 2 things about this. First, they are on different tire compounds. Power is on the red softer tires. Montoya's on the black standard tires. Now that we're further into a stint, maybe that's showing a little bit on Power's car. The other, Montoya made the podium yesterday. In the post-race press conference, he was asked about the confrontation with Power on the racetrack, and Montoya said, Will's desperate for results, so he'll do anything. That's what it is. It's the truth.
When you're in a team...
Very interesting because you're always rated against your teammates, aren't you?
Because
Not
you have the same equipment.
Absolutely.
And a place like Penske, everybody gets the same stuff.
And everybody's expected
to win.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, there's only one of those every weekend.
So it's Aloshin in 5th, Dixon in 6th, Montoya 7th, Doc.
And John Boslog just told Juan Pablo Montoya, hey, the guys in front of you, all 6 in front of you are on red tires, and they are starting to slow down and wear out. It is your time, Juan. Your blacks are going to be able to catch these guys. We saw him already catch and go by Will Power, and now Montoya, these next 7 laps until his first pit stop, is time for him to gain some spots.
Alan, you were absolutely right. That difference in speed between Power and Montoya comes down to the tires, because you can see he's put so much distance between himself and Power in a very, what is it, a lap and a half. And here comes Dixon.
Inside of Aloshin, Montoya tries to follow through.
Yeah, he'll be very aggressive. Oh, little blocking maneuver there.
I think that's Russian for, I'm not going to let you go by.
I think there's some guys you can intimidate in this series, but I don't think
Montoya is not one of them. But Aloshin does not have to get out of the way for Montoya. Montoya has to earn it.
Incident between Aloshin and Dixon under review. We'll see if that's another one added to the list here as we continue to watch from Detroit. Pretty hot and heavy here for 7th place between Will Power and Charlie Kimball, 12 and 83. As Power on the softer tires struggling here later in this first stint. Talked about why the strategy today might be different than what the winning strategy was yesterday. Let's check with Jan on that.
And that's because they have a little bit of data to pull from, and that is, as we see Tony Kanaan coming on to take some service, is that they found yesterday that the red sidewall Firestones lasted longer than they thought. Right now we're on lap 17. That means that Tony Kanaan, as he takes off these red sidewalls, has to make 2 more stops. If you can make it to lap 18 would be touch and go, but I think if you can get to lap 20, it's then a 2-stop race. So a guy like Will Power on the right side of the screen is just out there nursing the car around, hoping that he can get to anywhere between 18 and 20. Then he only has another stop.
Than what Montoya is.
Right. But you got to add one thing. Dixon has to look in his mirrors because he has Montoya behind him. Doc?
And you're exactly right, guys. Dixon is driving very, very hard up on top of the wheel here, trying to hang on as the red, softer compound tires of Dixon are wearing. Montoya would like to get by him. Both of these cars are going to pit in less than 3 laps. Remember, Dixon will be going to sticker blacks, and Montoya will go to sticker reds on this next pit stop, so he will be lightning fast. Both are going to pit now in about 2 to 3 laps.
All right, Doc, thanks. Quick reminder, the next Verizon IndyCar Series race is next Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN. The Firestone 600 from Texas Motor Speedway. Our last IndyCar race. Thank you to our crew here who have worked so hard to make this month.
One thing to notice today is that of the first 9 cars, 8 of them are Chevy powered, and only one with Hunter Ray is a Honda.
So Simon Pagenaud has led every lap so far. Pit stops for the leaders we expect shortly. If they happen, you'll see them in our ABC side-by-side coverage. Don't forget tonight here on ABC, the NBA Finals game number 2. LeBron and the Cavs, Steph and the Warriors. Warriors up 1-0 following their Game 1 win. We start at 7:30 Eastern with NBA Countdown. And of course, if you're away from home, you can stream it on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. Who you liking that, Eddie?
I'm not a basketball guy.
I knew I was going to get that look from you. Like, why are you asking me?
We could talk about golf or basketball's just not my thing.
How about we talk about Simon Pagenaud?
I'm so impressed. Look, he's on rails. He's figured something out this year. He's just
smooth,
impeccable.
Professor-like.
And it almost, oh, what's this from?
Someone has bounced off the barrier there.
It's a piece of front wing, I think.
Came off of Dixon's car, we're hearing. Scott Dixon, and look, as he drags along.
Oh, but
no, Montoya's missing.
Montoya's also missing some parts too, so what's that tell you?
Yep.
Somebody tried to pass somebody.
Do we need a wing? Absolutely.
The late move, the surprise move, doesn't quite work. Scott Dixon brakes pretty late, guys. It's not like you're going to be able to go in there and outbrake him. That's down the end of the backstretch heading into turn 7, 165 miles an hour down to about 65 miles an hour.
Yeah, there was just no room there. He wasn't in deep enough. But if you're going to pass Dixon, you're going to have to take a big risk, and that one just did not pay off.
Front wing on Scott Dixon, front wing on Montoya, I should say. Contact with those two is now, remember, Montoya went on sticker reds, and now the new front wing, and Dixon coming in, going on sticker blacks.
And Doc, the contact between them being reviewed.
What's your vote?
I agree with you. It was just almost unavoidable.
So Pagenaud in from the lead. Hunter Ray also in from second. Doc?
Well, they love the fact that Simon Pagenaud is getting excellent fuel mileage. In fact, in spite of the fact he's been pulling away 4 tires, they're going to go with the sticker blacks and take a half around the front wing out. That will add some rear grip. Pagenaud down and away. Let's go to Jan.
And Ryan Hunter-Reay just leaving. He is at the very pit in, and Pagenaud is at pit out. It was a routine stop. They were able to add some front wing for Ryan Hunter-Reay. I believe the reason, this was right at the time that they wanted to pit, but when they saw debris on the racetrack, no one wanted to be caught by a caution. That's why we saw the leaders hit pit road, and now they're setting up for Castroneves.
Big moment there as Kanaan gets by Hunter-Reay. Castroneves has taken over the lead, yet to pit. Spencer Pigot, driving the Ed Carpenter racing car, is also yet to pit. Little accordion of the pack after these pit stops. Look at this.
So Hawksworth on the inside doing a nice job. Getting around Joseph Newgarden.
I think I saw some pieces flying off a car there.
Graham Rahal and Newgarden. And now Sato and Rossi will try and follow through.
This is going to get tricky here.
Castroneves is in, Jan.
Yes, a battle on the racetrack and a battle on pit road. Wow, that was nice. 8.1 seconds for Castroneves. We'll see where he slots out. He pushed really hard on his in-lap, which you need to do when this is a track position race.
Also come in. So everyone has been on pit road at least once in the race.
Pagenaud has a advantage on Castroneves, who is in 3rd place.
There is Bourdais up to 4th in this cycle of things. Sebastian pitted back at lap 12. Hunter-Reay now back in 5th.
Sebastian is so good, isn't he? I mean, he's so quick all the time. It's almost like the stealth, because he goes along and all of a sudden at the end of the race, it's like he's back again.
I think you had the best term for him yesterday. He is a closer. If you give him a car that can win, he will win.
On board with Ryan Hunter-Reay and watching our Honda telemetry. Jan?
And you can see that he is now tracking behind Helio Castroneves. They're pitted right next to each other. And for Ryan Hunter-Reay, I mentioned it was a routine stop. For Castroneves, they were ultra fast. Remember, they won the pit stop competition in Indianapolis again, and it paid off. Just those few tenths of a second on pit road swapped the position between Castroneves and Ryan Hunter-Reay.
These cars are so close together, the competition so tight. Those split seconds on pit road are making a big difference in these races.
And what we have to remember, that these drivers took one heck of a beating yesterday. That was a hard race, and they're back at doing it again.
Hawksworth and Rossi are on pit road while you watch Carlos Munoz, 26, in 6th place, try and overtake his Andretti Autosport teammate Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Remember the disappointment for Carlos Munoz just last week at Indianapolis, finishing 2nd, and as I watched him on the screen, I felt for him because I was in the exact same thing a couple of times. But as a young driver for him, he certainly has many opportunities to win the Indy 500 in the future, because remember when he arrived on scene a couple of years ago?
He reminded me a lot of Aloshin. Just very fast hands, an overabundance of bravery, and so much talent. And let's not forget, he won here in the wet. He has won in Detroit.
That was a year ago. So Munoz running in 6th. Top 5, Pagenaud, Kanaan, Bourdais, Castroneves, and Hunter-Reay. Pagenaud with a 3.4 second lead over 2nd place. We're back to Detroit after this from your ABC station. An eventful opening portion of today's Duel in Detroit race number 2. Turn 1, lap 1 got messy.
Everybody trying to go for the same spot sometimes, and that's what happened when the 83 of Charlie Kimball started to move the traffic over, ended up putting in.
This was one heck of a battle, that one between Dixon and Montoya. And it carried through into the pits, and you can see the mechanics racing to change all the bits that fell off in the accident.
Stewards reviewed that, said no further action. And those drivers continue on as we come to you on a beautiful day here in Detroit. I know some of our other racing friends suffered from a little wet weather today. Those of you watching our IndyCar action from Detroit, glad to have you with us.
With Pagenaud this year, we really are witnessing excellence.
Yes.
This driver is capable of doing what seems to be impossible for his teammates. Rick?
Marco Andretti brings the car, and they've been frustrated all weekend. Marco's been particularly frustrated about the braking. Yesterday they had a brake bias problem. This morning he felt he had a problem in braking during the qualifying. Now they just want to see if they can get the best result they possibly can.
It has been a tough weekend for Marco, for sure.
Well, also a tough month in the month of May. Remember, we stood there speaking with Michael, his father, the other day, and he said Marco was working so hard at trying to get good results, but things just keep happening for him. And he says he knows.
In the fight for the win, 18, and another Spencer Pigot, who got a crack at 3 races this season by winning a scholarship on the ladder that feeds the IndyCar Series, and now this week has gotten an opportunity to run the rest of the street and road course races for Ed Carpenter. Ed runs only the oval course races in this 20 car. They had not been planning to field the car in the road and street course races, but had put together a deal with Spencer, and here he is.
You know, when I spoke to him, he said, boy, I've got a lot to learn. He says, I've sort of been thrown in the deep end. All the teams are looking for somebody that can come in, be at speed, and not put a car at risk. So hats off to Carpenter for bringing in a young American.
Absolutely. Look at all the pressure that Tony is putting on Pagenaud.
And he's reeled him in from a long way back.
And Tony is one of those drivers that once you put him in range, he's very hard to hold off.
And Bourdais is right there too. So is Pagenaud slowing down, trying to stretch some fuel?
Yeah, I bet you.
He better be a little bit careful, because he's going to be stretching the fuel from 3rd place. Look at Tony close the gap under braking. What a great view this is.
A little bit of 2 different driving styles here. Watch, like you mentioned, how deep Tony goes into the turn. I remember speaking to Tony earlier on about when he first joined the Ganassi team. Could really see the difference of how he drove and the 9 car of Scott Dixon drove. We watched the 11 car come into the pit lane, Jan.
Yes, and you saw him close that gap because we know that the in-laps are so important. They've changed the front tire pressures. They decide to not do the front wing. Rick?
Carlos Munoz brings the car, and especially a long stop, they had a problem with the left rear, sending him back out. They still plan to make one more stop. Doc?
And here's Juan Pablo Montoya back in 4 tires. They ran the sticker reds. They weren't very fast, didn't like them. Came back and put the blacks on. Now he is will still have to make one more pit stop to make it the distance.
Yeah, Montoya was only out for 10 laps since his last pit stop when he came in for the front wing change after he and Dixon collided there in turn 7.
He's got a lot of catching up to do now.
He's 42 seconds behind the leader, back in 15th place.
And Kanaan is in striking distance of Pagenaud.
Now don't forget, Tony came in a little bit earlier in the pit lane, so by my calculations, we'll probably see him on pit lane somewhere around lap 40, 41. If he's saving fuel, maybe a little bit longer. Simon Pagenaud looking like he might get to a lap 47, 48.
Coming up to the halfway mark of this second duel in Detroit race for the Verizon IndyCar Series. Tony Kanaan chasing Simon Pagenaud for the race lead. You saw it all unfold in our side-by-side coverage. Juan Pablo Montoya has crashed at Detroit today.
To coming down that long straight, making that left-hander after coming off of turn 7. The back end steps around from him and right into the outside wall eddy, and now the right rear toe is actually bent, and you can see the right rear wheel askew, so that's what drives him into the wall here on the inside.
I hate to say the obvious, but we've had 2 races and 2 crashes from Montoya. 3 races and 2 crashes from Montoya. He tried really hard to catch it, but there was no way he was going to catch that one.
That was an outlap off his pit stop. So we talked about how slippery those tires were when you bolt them on new.
You got to make up that time, Alan. You can't sit around and wait for your tires to heat up. That's where Bourdais, I think, was really exceptional yesterday when he took the lead coming out the pits. He managed to hold off everybody.
Kanaan will pit under the caution. Pagenaud will stay out. And it looks like Kanaan's going to be a very lonely man on the pit lane here. Doc?
Yeah, this would be a scheduled pit stop for Tony Kanaan, the 2007 winner. Scott Dixon was going to come in. He's got a problem with the car not turning, but they told him to stay out. So Kanaan, the only guy down on our end, he will get 4 sticker black tires. Try to get it completely full of fuel. And Kanaan will need one more stop to make it to the end. Jan.
Alexander Rossi was a little bit out of sequence where Brian Herta was trying to get him in some clean air. They're going to go ahead and take the opportunity to pit at 11.6. That's not really the issue. The issue is if you're Tony Kanaan or you are Alexander Rossi, you just went to the back of the group. So what you hope for now is that fuel strategy plays your way. Otherwise, you've just given up all your track position.
So cleanup continues. Under the second caution of this race after one, Pablo Montoya crashed and Tony Kanaan pitted from second place. Still under caution here at Detroit and beginning to ponder strategy, what the right move, what the wrong move might be, because it's going to be so critical in deciding the outcome of this race. Extended caution while they still get Montoya's car and the debris that had scattered cleared away from the racetrack. One of the top two pitted, Kanaan. He went from second back to 17th. The other, the leader Pagenaud, did not. Jan, what do you make of all this?
Well, I heard your discussion during the break is, could anyone make it all the way to the end? And I think I'm very confident in saying no. And that's because there are 34 laps to go from those who just pitted. And the most you can go is 26 if you're saving fuel. So therefore, that's going to leave you 8, if the math is correct, short. In order to get 8 more laps, you need 16 laps of yellow. The basic rule, 2 laps of yellow buys you 1 of green. So I suppose it's possible there could be 16 laps of yellow. That sounds like a very high number to me. Bank on all these cars stopping one more time, and when they do, Sebastian Bourdais, yesterday's winner, is the one who has more of a margin right now of the lead group, so he could be a player. Doc, Alan?
All right, Jan, thanks. We'll get Doc's report in just a minute while the extended caution continues. Get the opportunity to get another break in, and we'll come back after this from your ABC station. Lights out on the pace car. We're a half a lap from going green with what'll be 31 laps to go in the second dual in Detroit race from the raceway at Belle Isle Park for the Verizon IndyCar Series. Simon Pagenaud, the leader. Elio Castroneves, second. Ryan Hunter-Reay, third. Will Power, fourth. Joseph Newgarden, fifth. Who might play some strategy as the race restarts? Will we see some people duck onto pit road right away or within a lap or so to get some clear racetrack and a splash of fuel?
One thing we do know, Alan, that everybody's going to have to come in for fuel.
Castroneves on Pagenaud. Couldn't hook it up. Charlie Kimball inside of Spencer Pigot.
Pigot was very smart to let him go through because they were going to collide.
There's Graham Rahal now in the 15.
As we always say, such a great time to pass because the cars are so close together. Take advantage of it, but don't overdrive the car. Knock your wing off because you'll have no grip, no downforce, and into the pit you'll have to go. Some great dicing going on here, especially under braking.
These two Penske drivers that you see leading have been the two fastest Penske drivers throughout the season. Castroneves has been very unlucky, and Simon Pagenaud is almost like King Midas. Everything he's touched, he's won on the street courses.
Castroneves again as Pagenaud takes that defensive line to the inside.
He's trying to pass him on the exit, not on the entry. And he's done it. That was a masterful pass.
All started back in turns 1 and 2. What's interesting, guys, is the push to pass that these drivers have. The button that's on the steering wheel, they can push to give themselves a little bit more power. Remember, you only get 10 applications. You have to sort of leave some for the end of the race. But those 2 laps that those guys did after the restart, both of them were pushing the push to pass. And what they can do is also turn around and do it in retaliation. So you get that information back in the pit box for the teams, and they can say, push to pass, and you can hopefully defend a little bit, Eddie.
I think on this track, it really doesn't make an enormous difference like it does in other places, but you are right. But that pass that Castroneves did, that was textbook. Watch this in replay. So that's the exit. Look at that. Yes. There it is.
Oh, it's a big black mark for Simon Pagenaud coming out of the turn. He just tromped the gas pedal, didn't he?
They did that, and they were playing chicken. Okay, let's see who has to lift off. And whenever you have the inside line, you always have an advantage.
Now, it's obvious that Castroneves is putting a little gap here on Pagenaud. So at this point in the race on these tires, as Connor Daly and Charlie Kimball square off into the corner. 18 and 83. Kimball holds the spot.
Kimball's been very racy today.
That's from back in 9th and 10th.
Look at this traffic jam. You were talking about clean air, Scott. There's not very much clean air in that group.
That's what the drivers are saying, that about 2 or 3 car lengths back, you start to feel that disturbance, and they're saying the most difficult portion is back in that section coming through 3, 4, and 5 to keep close enough to people to get that run out of 6 to go down that back stretch to have a shot at passing somebody under braking into 7. Just listen to them use the throttle here.
We saw Will Power slide back earlier in the race when he was on the softer tires for a longer stint. He's recovered nicely, running 4th here, trying to pressure Ryan Hunter-Reay for 3rd.
And Hunter-Reay in his Honda is putting just enough pressure on Pagenaud to let him remember that he's behind him. You have to fill their mirrors. If you're gonna, you have to put pressure on the car ahead of you. Right now, this is a really tight battle.
That doesn't look good, Rick.
No, Spencer Pigot unfortunately broke a toe link on the back of the car. As a result, they brought the car in, they've shut it off, they're working on it, trying to get him back out, which is too bad because he'd really had a pretty impressive run here. And now they've got to spend more time in the pits, and we'll call this a training exercise for the rest of the day.
Well, that toe link is a suspension piece that's on the rear part of the car that the mechanics can adjust to set up the suspension on for the driver's preference. And if it is bent, the car sort of dog legs down the road a little bit, and no fun to drive, especially in a bumpy track like this.
Look at Hunter-Reay.
Ryan with a great car last week at the Indianapolis 500. Led 15 times for 52 laps. He led a quarter of the race. Had a car that he could have contended to win. Got taken out in that pit road collision. And when we asked him about it the other day, said it was a, quote, massive letdown. As you look at the Honda telemetry from Hunter-Reay's car.
Just watch the speed down here into 3, and then watch him pound on the brakes here. Down to 2nd gear. This is where you're pushing your foot on the throttle. You don't want to tromp the throttle because you don't want to spin the tires and take some life off the tires. So as rough as it looks right now, you're trying to be very ginger with the car, both on the steering and on the throttle, also on the brakes.
So Hunter-Reay running in 3rd position. It has been 2 years since Helio Castroneves has won a Verizon IndyCar Series race. His last win was here in 2014. He's out in front today, but still a long way to go, 27 laps left. Riding with the leader, Helio Castroneves, with a reminder to download IndyCar Mobile for access to exclusive live in-car cameras, driver and pit crew chatter, and more, only from Verizon. Talked about Castroneves being 2 years since he won here. Helio, a 3-time winner here at Detroit, his first victory and his most recent victory. This was it, race 2 years ago.
He's had a great season so far, but he hasn't quite come in victory circle. We saw him jump out of the car yesterday. Look at that. He doesn't look any different. He jumped out of the car yesterday, Alan. He looked like he could go again. Just put more fuel and let's go race the second one.
40 years old and fit as could be. Had a chance to win Indianapolis last week. Of course, had that contact with J.R. Hildebrand. Roger Penske shared with me that J.R. reached out very graciously this week to discuss that and offer his apology. So can Elio climb the fence again today?
I would say the odds right now are in his favor.
Let's talk about Kanaan here. He's back in this soup of traffic, Doc. What's the game for Barry Wanser and this team?
Well, I just went down to talk to Barry and Chip Ganassi, and they were discussing exactly what your question is. Do you leave him out until like 9 laps to go, which is what their fuel window would be, or do you bring him in the next 3 to 4 laps? He's running so well. When Pagenaud and some of the other leaders pit and go ahead and top him off, they were still discussing as a moment ago. Obviously, TK is going to put
the race.
Seeing some activity down on the pit lane.
Pagenaud has caught back up to Castroneves.
Tires are laid out in about 4 or 5 pits. Here's Pagenaud in. Hunter Ray is also in. Will Power is in. Jan?
Ryan Hunter-Reay taking the opportunity to pit. We thought that Castroneves was going to pit, but they waved off. While this is happening, let's get down to Doc with Pagenaud. Doc?
Final stop of the day for Simon Pagenaud, who had been in somewhat of a fuel-saving mode. Now he can go full rich. Got to get it full of fuel, get it full of fuel. He's down and away, just over 8.5 seconds.
And got something big might alter this whole thing. Jack Hawksworth is stopped on the racetrack. Full course yellow.
Here we go all over again.
Puts a big smile on the Simon Pagenaud group.
Kanaan got in, Doc.
Yeah, Tony Kanaan got in for 4 sticker black tires, no adjustments, just to top it off with fuel. Obviously, you guys saw he was slipping and sliding. These tires will help him attack here in the final laps.
Well, 2 things here. A tough weekend for Hawksworth, who didn't even get to race yesterday when fuel system failed on his car before they got it started on the grid. So got 0 laps yesterday. Then today, more problems for him, and he is in trouble here out on the backstretch. Second thing is how this caution might mess with the running order. For Kanaan, getting on and off for that splash of fuel might gain him several spots in the pack.
We will find out in about a lap and a half.
Well, for
and
all
it will
the
be a
guys that
flat-out sprint.
Yeah, for the guys that didn't come in, they're going to come in now and end up going further back in the queue. So for Elio, this is not well timed, but you know, a fast car, smart driver.
Yeah, he's going to need more than a fast car and a smart driver if he's starting all the way back, because track position is so important here. As we've seen, every pass, if the driver that you're trying to pass doesn't work with you, is high risk.
Professor Bekas is running the calculations for us.
Yes, and I can tell you, you should have seen the looks on these crews' faces in the 3 pit for Elio Castroneves. They put the tires out, as did Ryan Hunter-Reay and Simon Pagenaud. At the last second, they gave him a signal to say, stay out, stay out. And the moment they saw this full course caution, they go, we're cooked. But you know what I would expect? I would say for Castroneves, they'll change their strategy. They won't pit now. They'll stay out, like happened yesterday, and hope for something later on, because if he pits now, he gives everything up. Why not let it go green? He doesn't need fuel yet, and maybe he'll have something that goes his way, but now they're bringing the tires out, so they're going to give up that track position. Castroneves, wow, he's going to have a long day now.
Well, let's see what happens here as they come toward the opening of pit road. He's got, you know, Jan is correct. He's got a little while before he has to stop. He pitted at lap 33. And we had a caution right after that bought him some more laps. And so you could probably extend with this caution the distance he could go a pretty good bit, 28, 29 laps anyway.
Then that's a strategy that makes perfect sense, because the possibility of having a yellow when you get close at the end of the race, I think always goes up on a road circuit. but it looks like they're coming in.
We'll see. I'm sure that those discussions continue non-stop on the team's private channel. Tim Cindric calling things for Will Power.
There he is.
Now let me correct one thing.
Coming
here.
in.
That was a 25 that he last pitted.
He's in the pits.
And the first thing that Elio said on the radio when he got the call, he says, "Come on." And Roger Penske said, "Just stay cool, stay cool." He takes his service. He knows he's going to be giving up the track position. But again, all that work, Castroneves has been looking all day for clear air. He loves his race car. Now he's back in the dirtiest air he's had all day.
Roger Penske calls the strategy during races for Elio Castroneves. See if he can work some magic to help his driver get back to the front of this one. Coming to the restart, Sebastian Bourdais is now the leader.
We're going to go for it, bud. We're going to try to have you get the best gap you can and splash and go and see where we end up. Otherwise, you're going to be in the pack with everybody else just in the conga line.
That still took the green flag 8th on the grid.
But if you take, I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Yep, I'm just thinking about Will Power. Remember, he wasn't able to run at St. Pete's earlier this year. Sort of an up and down season that he had. But it's interesting, when I spoke to him just earlier this, he's training a little bit differently. And remember, he had that issue with his inner ear, all those sorts of things. I didn't know if it was a concussion at St. Petersburg. He says, "I've just changed my life." And really, Tim Cindric has been a help on that with him. So overall, I think he's really back in a happy spot in a race car, because he went through a bit of a down there, I think, for a little while earlier this season.
I agree with what you said, but the biggest life-changing event he's had is Simon Pagenaud winning three races and coming second and always being quick. Power has not been used to having somebody in his team that can press him so much for speed. So by beating Pagenaud today, he's putting himself right back in play for the championship, and he's kind of saying, "Hey, I'm here too. It's not all about Pagenaud."
Key moment of the fight between these two. Back on that restart with 18 laps to go. Headed down into turn number 3.
You can see Will, the silver car back there, right behind Simon Pagenaud, came over turn 2. The car was sideways, carrying the speed up. Watch this.
Pagenaud
between the Penske teammates. I'm sure there was a meeting.
Did you see the back come out and almost slap the side of Power's car? That was an exceptional pass on cold tires.
And I want to go back and talk about the ups and downs that Will has had so far this season. Obviously, St. Pete, that was a big deal. Remember the Grand Prix at Indianapolis, the road course race there, when he got racing with Alexander Rossi and spun off the course. How unlike Will Power.
Watching the second and third run right now as we're watching Will Power still leading. Ryan Hunter-Reay had a few more push-to-passes left than Simon Pagenaud did, so it's expected to see him maybe get a little closer, take a run here at the end. But Simon seems to be able to keep up the speed.
If you're driving for Penske and you don't win the Indy 500, I think the next best race you can win is Detroit.
White flag, last lap. You mentioned Roger Penske, his organization, the promoters of this event that raises so much money for the Belle Isle Conservancy to try and rebuild and restore this wonderful island that so many citizens enjoy throughout the year. Roger's corporate business headquartered here in Detroit. This is hometown, and of course the hometown of Chevrolet. And they want to win here very, very badly. The next best thing to a win at Indy for them.
Penske Automotive Group, the second largest automobile group here in North America.
Pagenaud closing in a little bit here.
Tim Cindric say overtake, overtake. Will Powers now just got one left. Simon just used his last one.
I don't think he's close enough.
Is your overtake?
Yeah, that was so checkered flag, his 26th career win. And his first win since the first race of May 2015. Will Power wins it in Detroit.
Good job, man. Good job. Nice recovery from yesterday, boys. Good job, boys. It's been a long time. Great job. Great job.
The road course race at Indianapolis a year ago, Will Power's last win. This one ties him with Roger Ward for 14th on the all-time win list. Victory Lane and post-race coverage from Detroit after this from your ABC station.
You remember how to celebrate these things?
Nothing feels better than winning. Yeah. Will Power's wife Liz and the Penske team beginning the celebration after a hard-earned win today here at the raceway at Belle Isle. Power beating Simon Pagenaud, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Joseph Newgarden, and Scott Dixon for his first victory of this season.
Nice job today, my friend. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
Great to be here in Detroit. Love racing at this track. It's a challenging place at all times. We had a great car with preferred breeder, Fuzzy Vodka. ECR worked really hard for us.
And Will jumps around to the other side of the car. Will travel around.
Today in Detroit, early part of the race, he started on the softer compound tires, and after a opening laps crash, the race went for a while, and he slipped back a little bit. Then with a bold move, that was Montoya getting by Will Power. Then the bold move as he got around Simon Pagenaud.
He lived on the limit today. He was passed, as you said, by Montoya. It was very close, but he earned it. He earned it the hard way. Passing a car, the lead car on the outside, is not an easy thing to get away with.
And a look at the final finishing order from the second duel in Detroit race. It is Power, Pagenaud, Hunter-Reay, Newgarden, and Dixon, the top five.
And Connor Daly did a nice run again today with a Honda power plant. Tony Kanaan looked like he might have the strategy, but didn't get it done. Marco Andretti, probably the best result here that we've seen for a little while.
Yeah, Marco started back, way back in 22nd place. How about Castro Neves?
He had it. I really felt he was going to be the winner of the race, but as always, Detroit threw out that goofy joker card, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but he was the quickest.
The wrinkle, the caution that came out just before Castro Neves was going to make his final pit stop, and it cost him a lot of ground in the championship. Let's hear from the runner-up. A couple of times, so let's show you the gap now. And I'll just take the lesson from last year with that double-point season finale available. Anything's possible, and that 80-point gap, perhaps not as large as it might sound for a race that pays 50 points to win. The one that you really have to make note of is 7th place there. Remember, Will Power didn't even run the first race of the season.
And he moved up 5 spots today, as we can see there on the chart, which is pretty impressive. So look for him to continue the power that he has right now, pun intended, you guys, because I think he really is going to have an opportunity now with that confidence to go off and do well next week at Texas and going forward.
Look at Joseph Newgarden, 4th.
Yep, and finished 4th in the race today. Well, a good day for Chevrolet in the shadows of their headquarters building as Will Power put the bow ties in victory lane and earned the spoils of victory. As the photos and the hat dance take shape over by the victory podium for Will Power and the Penske team, our pit crew's done the job. Let's go back down to Jan.
All right, we'll give that a try again. We're going to
but he's got that large point lead. But as you mentioned before, you know, double points at the end of the season, that can all go away. You have to get to the end of the season first.
I hate to do this. Right at the last moment that I'm in TV with you,
All right.
I have to agree.
Into the championship deciding race out west in California. We certainly wish our colleagues at NBCSN the best as they take you along the trip. Thank all the drivers, teams, strategists, race promoters for all of their help throughout our coverage this season. Thank our incredibly hardworking crew who do so much to make the pictures and the sounds happen for you on these races. And of course, we thank you for watching and hope that you've enjoyed our IndyCar Series coverage this year on ABC. Up next is world news or your local news, except on the West Coast. So for Scott Goodyear and Eddie Cheever, Dr. Jerry Punch, Rick DeBrule, and Jan Beekes, I'm Alan Bestwick. We have enjoyed so much being with you for these races throughout the first months of this year and look forward to when we do it again at the beginning part of next season, leading up to, of course, the 101st running of the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Here this weekend in Detroit, two very different races. One a strategy decider won by Sebastian Bourdais, the other a flat-out sprint to the finish taken by Will Power, your winner in the second Duel in Detroit.